Look, this video is not about Stormy Daniels' testimony in a criminal case just last week involving former President Trump. My video is about a Texas notary public who improperly notarized several signatures back in 2016. Signatures for Stormy Daniels, her lawyer, and the then lawyer for then presidential candidate Donald Trump. And that lawyer's name is Michael Cohen. I want to focus on all the different problems that came from that improper notarization so that notaries like me and you can learn from those mistakes. My name is Michelle Riley. I am a Alabama commissioned notary public. I have two notary businesses. One of them involves training Alabama notaries, something I've been doing for the past 10 years. I think notaries not only in Alabama, but in other states will benefit from a close-up review of the actual documents and notarization that took place so that we can learn what not to do when we are presented with a difficult notarization. Normally, when I do these types of sessions, I will blur out or redact the names of signers and individuals. And I thought about it, but I'm not going to do it this time. And this is why. While I respect everyone's privacy, when I Googled Notary Public Stormy Daniels, this is what came up. And this is just page one. This is a very popular, well publicized story. And so for me to redact, blur, it's not helping. I don't see it really being important in this instance, especially because it is not the goal of this discussion to character assassinate, to belittle, to attack or make fun of the parties involved. Not at all. The goal is really to learn from this situation. And since there are so many players or individuals, I feel like redacting names and all will just make it more confusing. And so I'll be focusing on three main individuals. You're going to hear about Erica, who her name showed up, who was the notary for this transaction. Erica Jackson out of Texas. You're going to hear or see the name Stormy Daniels. What I want to point out is that that is one of her alias names. She is also known as Stephanie and Peggy, so you'll see those names when we look at documents. And then you'll also see the name, we're going to focus on Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen should be a familiar name. He was formerly associated with and a representative of former President Trump. So those are the three main people You'll see other names when we look at documents, but those I feel are the three important names. And again, just to give a little more context, the notarization took place in 2016 in Texas. And the purpose of the meeting was to notarize signatures on two forms, a non-disclosure form and a separate letter. Those are the two documents that Erica was asked to notarize. So we know that a notarization took place in 2016, in part because there is evidence of that, the actual documents that were notarized, and because of this letter from the state of Texas. Give me just one moment to click off. From the state of Texas, the Secretary of State's office. This letter is dated March 9, 2018, almost 2 full years later, addressed to the notary Erica Jackson. Now, that is not Miss Jackson, nor was it her home address. I checked, and it is a business address to a mailbox at a UPS store. So, again, I don't want to demonstrate as if I'm being careless about protecting Miss Jackson's information. So, a letter like this uh, to a notary is one of our worst nightmares. All right. And it is regarding notary complaint file and the file number. The letter reads, Dear Miss Erica Jackson, enclosed is a copy of an affidavit of complaint executed by the Office of the Texas Secretary of State, alleging that you have violated the duties and responsibilities of your office as a Texas notary public. Strong words. The complaint alleges that you failed to complete a notarial certificate at the time you attached your notarial seal to a document. Attaching your seal to a document without attaching a notarial certificate constitutes good cause for the Secretary of State to take action against your notary commission. And then they cite the code, the Texas code, that makes this a requirement. I highlighted what I think is super important, not only for Texas notaries, but notaries in every state. And while I'm not familiar with all notary state laws, I'm very familiar with the one for the state of Alabama and several others. And so please pay close attention to this if you are a notary. The lack of notarial certificate makes it unclear the type of notarial act that was performed, for whom the notarization was performed, the date of the notarization, and the location. So by Miss Erica not including the notarial certificate, authorities are having to guess at those four very important things. The letter goes on to say, when you respond to this complaint, not if, when, make sure you include the following. You must respond in writing using the attached affidavit of notary named in complaint form and the complaint must be received by this office within 20 days. Your response must be typed, written, or printed on the affidavit and verified before an officer authorized to administer oaths. So they are telling her you've got 20 days or less to respond. You must use an affidavit. Most, if not all, affidavits require the signer to take an oath swearing under penalty of perjury that the information being provided is accurate and complete. Okay, so this is a very subtle way that the notary is being told you can't just make stuff up when you tell us about this notarization and why you failed to perform it correctly. In addition to the information requested above, include the following: any disputed facts, your current mailing address, copies of the pages of your notary record book referencing the notarizations at issue, copies of the pages of your notary record book showing the last 10 notarizations performed by you, and any additional information relevant to the complaint. Um, it's serious. And I tell you, if I received a letter like this, I probably need to go lie down. And if not lie down, get on my knees and start praying, um, because this is serious. Um, Copies of the pages of your notary record book and copies of the pages of your notary record book showing the last 10 notarizations. So I want to just comment on this. Obviously, for this one here, they want to see proof in her journal that she met with Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, and the other individual um, who signed his name. They want to see the journal entries that would indicate when, where they met, when they met, and the type of notarization that was performed. So really getting back to what was missing by way of not including a certificate. The second bullet, you may want to know, why do they care about the last 10 notarizations performed by the notary? I don't know the right word for it, but they want to see evidence of how she has notarized in the past. One, they want to make sure she is keeping a journal, which is a requirement or was at that time in Texas. They want to see what information she's recording to determine if this is a notary who knows better and is keeping a journal as outlined and required, the right pieces of information in the journal. So it's really twofold. One, to help with their investigation of the notarization itself, but two, to get a better idea of the notary and how she has conducted notarizations in the past. And I think that that information's helpful. If this was just, oh, she had a bad day. It was this one bad notarization, and all of her other notarizations comply with state law, then, they'll handle the situation one way. But if they see that time and time again, there are faulty or error-riddled notarizations being recorded, that might mean a different punishment or response. And so before we leave this letter, I want to speak on a couple things, primarily for Alabama notaries and those notaries who are in states that don't require a journal. Even though Alabama does not require us by law to keep a journal, you can see how keeping a journal can be beneficial and helpful. It is still and always will be a notary best practice in every state for notaries to record every notarization. Case in point, for this one here, let's say Stormy Daniels or Michael Cohen chose to say, it wasn't me. The notary must have met with someone pretending to be me, but it wasn't me, so don't come for me. Well, if a notary has a journal that shows she examined ID for Stormy, for Michael Cohen, it's going to be a lot harder for those individuals to say they weren't there. They didn't sign that form. And then again, providing copies of past notarization. There was nothing wrong for authorities to ask for that information. But again, that's further evidence that you can provide the court to show that, yes, I know what I'm doing. I follow the same process every time I notarize a signature. And so don't treat me as if I am unprofessional, and that I don't know what I'm doing. And so notaries, again, there will be times you will be asked to provide information from your journal. Treat those requests, whether they are from state or federal authorities, as important. You could even get requests from the general public. So it's always important for you to check your state notary law and find out the correct procedure you should follow as a commissioned notary to provide information when asked about your notary record book or your notary journal. Before we leave this letter, let's take a look at the sample notarization or a copy of the notarization that Miss Erica performed that Texas is saying she performed incorrectly. And then I want to show you a sample of a type of notarial certificate that the state expected Erica to use. So I'm going to flip quickly through these pages. All right. The Secretary of State included in Erica's letter one sample of the forms. There was 2 forms. So this is how we know something took place on October 28, 2016. This is Erica's official notary seal that she placed on the signature line and next to a signature for EC, comma L, maybe LLC, I'm not sure. All right, so this is how Erica notarized the signature page on one of the two forms. This is the issue that the Texas uh, Secretary of State took issue with. They said, Erica, you failed to use a notarial certificate. What did they mean by that? They expected to see Erica's seal attached to something like this. All right. It's called the notary block, the notary certificate or notarial certificate. This type of certificate is an acknowledgement. It is the section of a form that notaries are required to fill out by hand, and then and only then place our notary seal and our signature along with filling out the venue, stating who we met with, outlining when we met with them, and including our commission expiration date. That is true in almost all 50 states. I'm sure there are a few states. I know California has a very different looking notarial certificate, as well as a few others. But generally speaking, this is what the Secretary of State's office did not see when Erica notarized those signatures. And so the Secretary of State's office wants to know, why didn't you include this form or something like it? This is something that gets covered in should be covered in all notary public training classes. It's almost like basic 101 notary education. Every notary with a commission should know this. It really is similar to knowing 1 + 1 = 2. I mean that sincerely. Every signing agent, every mobile notary, every apostille agent who performs notarizations should know this. Now, it's possible that the notary was aware of this. Notaries are not responsible for drafting documents. And so, really, truly, the lawyers involved in this case should have included a notarial certificate in the document, because typically when notaries arrive to a meeting to perform a notarization, the notary certificate is already typed and is part of the document. And so that probably threw off this notary. But again, in basic notary training, notaries are taught that if a document does not include a notarial certificate, we then are responsible for adding that language or adding this information. And we can do that in a number of ways. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but in short, um, many of us keep in our notary bag loose sheets of paper similar to this with the certificate language. We call them loose certificates. And so in this instance, Miss Erica could have pulled this out, made the state of Texas, county, wherever they were, and then printed maybe one of these for each individual, or just squeezed in the three names of the individual she was meeting with, the date back to 2016, her signature, her seal, and attached it to the form. She could have even used a stamp similar to this, where you can press this at the bottom of the non-disclosure form or letter. And what shows up is this form. And then the notary fills in the blanks. A third option is that the notary would go ahead and handwrite this information at the bottom of the form and do it that way. So there are at least, well, there's a fourth option. The notary, when she arrived and saw that both forms did not have a notarial certificate, she could have said to everyone in the room, I cannot notarize these documents unless they have a notarial certificate attached. And then adjourn the meeting and waited for the lawyers to fix the forms and reconvene. Those were four ways to address the issue. But unfortunately, it appears that this notary chose to just apply her seal. And that's why a complaint was filed against her, and she had to endure an investigation. Now that we have a better understanding of what happened and at that notarization and what wasn't done that should have been done, speaking as a notary, it would not have been easy for me to recount the events of a notarization that happened nearly 2 years ago. So I don't envy Miss Erica at all for having to stop what she's doing, complete the affidavit documents that were provided to her by the Secretary of State's office, and gather together everything that was asked of her and provide that within 20 days. That's just a long time, especially for notaries who are notarizing documents or signatures every single day. And they're out there. There are notaries who um, are using their commission as part of a notary business where they're getting calls from the general public, from title companies, financial services, asking for a notary. And so loan signing agents in particular who specialize in real estate related notarizations. Some of them are meeting with 4, 5, 6, and more individuals 5 days a week. And so it's a lot harder for a professional notary to remember what took place at a notary appointment than perhaps someone who only uses their seal once or twice a year. So let's see what came of the investigation. And now I'm going to turn to the National Notary Association, which I am a member of and have been, I want to say, for as long as I have been commissioned. Um, Two things that they provide me as a member that I really appreciate and get a lot of value from. One is their notary bulletin, and we're taking a look at an issue of their one of the issues of their notary bulletin. It is like a newsletter for notaries. Very informational. They hit on some really good topics, and they often interview notaries and other notary experts, and it really provides a deeper level of education and understanding on matters pertaining to notaries. And that's not easy to do, especially when you have 50 states with 50 different notary laws. And so it really can be tricky putting information out there and knowing that it's possible what is being shared may not apply to every notary in different states. But I feel that the NNA does a very good job at that. And then the second thing that I benefit by being a member of the National Notary Association is their notary law tracking. And so they have employees whose primary focus is to monitor each state's notary laws, and not only the laws, the bills that get proposed prior to becoming law. And on 2 occasions, it really came in handy. More recently, it was very helpful because I was not aware of a change in the law that was directly affecting how I perform notarizations here in Alabama. So I really want to encourage you to, regardless what state you're in, to spend some time on the National Notary Association's website, National Notary shuckums.org, I think. Um, but for this particular notarization with the notary involved in the Stormy Daniels non-disclosure agreement and the letter, I want to turn to this bulletin because the NNA, National Notary Association, reached out to Michael Closen. This is a different Michael. Michael Closen, who is a notary scholar. He is an expert witness. He is a trained lawyer, and he specializes in matters related to notarizations. He's been involved in many high-profile cases that involve notarized signatures. And so it looks as if the NNA say, hey, can you comment on this matter about whether or not the notarizations were performed correctly or not. Does this invalidate the notarization due to the errors? And so that's what we're going to take a look at here. Questions about notarization put President Trump's confidentiality agreement with Stormy Daniels at risk. So this was originally published March 15, 2018. Again, still years after the notarization occurred, but I do want to point out this update. In September of 2018, the NNA's editor notes the Texas Secretary of State's office confirmed that the Notaries Commission has been suspended for 3 months as a result of their investigation. When I heard this, I was like, 3 months? This was a big mistake. 3 months seems like a minor, what do you call it, penalty for her actions. Again, it's easy for me on the outside looking in, right? It's possible they showed mercy. It's possible, not even possible, they surely know more than what I know about the situation and what we know about the situation. And it wasn't until I was preparing to record this that this came to my mind. None of us were in that room with Miss Erica during the notarization. A lot may have been going on. It could have been a very stressful environment. And not all notarizations are stressful, but due to all of the players present and not present, due to the type of documents involved, I'm beginning to believe it could have been a very stressful environment. And when you are in a stressful situation, it is easy to make mistakes. Because here is another sample, picture of an incorrectly notarized signature. This is her seal. And again, as we learned earlier, there is no signature. Ms. Jackson did not sign her name anywhere. And there is no notarial certificate. How could she have forgotten all of that? I could see how if there was arguing going on, yelling going on. I have followed Michael Cohen, not Michael Closen. I've seen his his posts on social media, his recordings. He is from New York or New Jersey. He has that heavy brogue accent. He is loud. He is forceful. And something tells me if he were to get riled up in a meeting, it could be he could come across as intimidating. I don't know anything about Stormy Daniels' lawyer, but you got 2 opposing lawyers in the room. I bet it was a stressful environment. So maybe once the Texas Secretary of State heard all of the facts from Miss Erica, the notary, they felt a suspension for 3 months was warranted. What's not mentioned here is that They also required her to undergo formal notary training. At this time in Alabama, training was not mandatory, but they made it mandatory. She had to show proof that she completed training in order for them to reinstate her notary commission. All right, so now a bit about Michael Closen, and then we'll read a few sections. I told you who he is. He is the author of an excellent book that I purchased when I attended one of the NNA's notary conferences. Let's see if I can't get that to be still. Um, my book is right over there. I've got paper clips, post-it notes throughout it. I even got him to sign my book. Unfortunately, as we can see, it is not listed as an ebook. And right now it looks as if they're only offering it, well, I shouldn't say that, but used or new, I'm not, okay, it is offered in paperback. The price is pretty high, but let me say that it's an excellent book. It really is, especially for any of you notaries who do any training. I highly recommend it. It will be a great asset to your training classes. I would say a brand new notary, some of this could be a little overwhelming, but you may want to hop on Amazon and consider it. It used to be sold exclusively on the National Notaries Association's website, and the price was lower. I checked the NNA's website today and I did not see the book listed. Okay. All right. So again, his feedback matters. And so let's see what he has to say about this notarization performed by Miss Erica. So let's again look at the problems that Michael Closen has with this document. Well, with this notarized document, I'm going to scroll down. All right, so scroll up, really. I never thought about this. Michael Closen first talks about the notary seal, her official seal. Is it real or fake? Valid question. The first issue that arises is whether the notary seal affixed was an authentic seal belonging to the notary named in the image, and whether the notary actually affixed the seal impression to the two documents. Hadn't thought about that. He goes on to say there have been numerous cases of wrongdoers forging or faking notary seals to impersonate notaries and or forge notarizations. There have also been cases in which wrongdoers have stolen or otherwise acquired legitimate seals of notaries and then used those misappropriated seals to impersonate notaries and or forge notarizations. If these events occurred here with these two documents, the notarizations would be invalid. Really appreciate him zeroing in on that. I know when I heard about the story, I just assumed they were legitimate, but I also know of instances when Alabama notaries have been summoned to court about a notarized signature only to tell the court, I'm sorry, but that's not how I sign my name. That is not my signature. It is so important for notaries. And by the way, in those instances, the notaries did not know how their official seal showed up on a document. And so those of us with seals, it is important that we control the seal, we keep it locked up close to us when we're not using it. Um, we do know there have been reports of wrongdoers just going online and ordering seals and using them. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem that difficult for that sort of thing to happen, which is why, again, it's important to have a journal so that if there is a notarization on a document that I never had anything to do with, I didn't notarize it, I could at least show authorities my journal and show that there was no entry for that date, for that document, and thereby support my position that that's not my signature. So that's seal real or fake. And under problem notarizations, if the real notary in this situation affixed the seals, the notarizations were nevertheless faulty and invalid for several reasons. This is Closen speaking. Why? He said because the notary did not prepare a notarial certificate as part of either notarization. Thus, the notary did not identify the venue where the notarizations were performed. The notary did not verify that the signers were present at the time of the notarizations. The notary did not verify which signatures were being notarized, since each document was signed by more than one individual. And again, I'm not going to go back to the document to show you. I think an example will pop up on the screen. But yeah, it's misleading. And in fact, in one example, all right, I will scroll. The signature. So here is Miss Erica's notary seal. Again, there's no signature or date, so we don't know when she applied this. We've got one person signing on 10/28/16, another one signing 10/31/16, and a third signing 10/28/16. So did Erica show up for all three, for two, for one? Did Erica show up for the mystery guy, the invisible man? So again, I'm not being ugly here. I'm really trying to point out why this is such an issue. Second, the notary did not sign other notarization. The failure of the notary to do those two things is absolutely fatal. I mean, I even wondered, hey, did she start to notarize, then caught wind of something, some additional information, was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is not what I signed up for. I'm done. I'm out of here. We really don't know. Next, the alleged notarizations were not dated by the notary, so it is not possible to tell when she affixed her seal, before, at the time of, or after the notarizations were performed. If the seal were affixed before or after the documents were signed and or without the knowledge of one or more of the document signers, the notarizations would be invalid. This is why we stress that the signers wait until they show up in person before the notary before signing a document. And notaries, you cannot waive that requirement. Every person's signature that you notarize, they have to sign up in the flesh. And for some notarizations, they have to sign them in front of you. They must. Everyone must show up. And for certain types of notarizations, if they sign their name before they meet with the notary, it's invalid. It could be considered invalid. Notary journal entries. Texas notaries are required by law to prepare a notary journal entry for each of their notarizations. So the notary should have completed 2 journal entries for each signer to record the notarizations in this case. The notary should have indicated that Stormy, also known as Peggy and Stephanie, signed the letter. So it should have said letter, and there should have been another entry talking about the non-disclosure agreement. In fact, the Secretary of State has requested the notary to provide copies of those entries as part of its complaint review process. If no such entries were made, that omission will suggest very strongly the invalidity of the notarizations. I would also like to know whether the notary had any connection to any of the parties or attorneys involved in this case. How and why was the notary chosen? Whether anyone influenced the notary to simply affix her seal to documents, whether the notary really realized the notarizations were faulty at the time they were performed, and whether the notary was compensated for these 2 notarizations, and if so, by whom and for how much. So yeah, you could tell Michael closed and he got to the bottom of it quickly. Don't be surprised. We notaries do get asked to do illegal things. It happens. An invalid agreement. The real concern as we close out, and I appreciate you hanging in here with me, the real concern is whether the invalid notarizations make the confidentiality agreement invalid, although the actress's lawsuit as of this time does not make such a claim. The agreement in question was a private contract that was not required by law to be notarized. Thus, it might seem that the faulty notarizations have no effect on the contract. However, to the contrary, it seems to me, meaning Michael Closen, that a notarization either means something or it does not. Give me a moment to see if I need to read this. I will provide a link where you can go to, in fact, yeah, I'll provide a link to the NNA's website. I'll see if I can't retrieve this. Oh, it's right on Google. Yeah, if you Google Notary Public Stormy Daniels, it'll take you right there. When private parties mutually decide to have their transaction notarized, the notarization becomes a condition to their contract. If the notarization is invalid, the condition fails, and this failure either invalidates or at least substantially undermines the contract. So I'm going to end here with this comment that I may or may not pick up in a future video. In states that require their notaries to be bonded, it is law that notaries are financially responsible for the mistakes that we make when performing notarizations. And so I'm circling back to why this is so important to all of us. Our mistakes as notaries matter. And we all make mistakes, but we need to catch our mistakes before we leave the signing table, because what could happen is our mistake could invalidate or substantially undermine a transaction, which causes the signer or a third party financial harm. And when that happens, it opens us up to be held responsible for restitution. Having a claim filed against our notary bond, needing to use our notary errors and omission insurance, being subjected to our state's um, notary complaint procedures. It could be found or determined that we have civil, not only civil liability, but we may be criminally liable as well. So important to know our notary laws, more important to get real training, and equally important for us to only notarize signatures when we know what we are doing and that we are doing it properly. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to go ahead and show Mr. Closen. Great guy. I shouldn't say great guy, just class act individual, extremely knowledgeable. I have participated, give me one moment. Yeah, I was about to click the wrong button. He has been a frequent presenter at many of the notary conferences held by the National Notary Association. And if you're fortunate to attend when he is speaking, you heard it first from me. You make sure you show up to his workshop early, get a front row seat, take something to write with, because it feels like you're going to Notary University. He he takes questions from the audience, which is very helpful. I have learned so much by following him, by his book, by participating in his workshops. I hold him in high esteem. All right, that's it for this review of the document. I wish the notary well. I mean that sincerely. I hope that you learned something new that you from this video. And I think I may go forward and talk about one, if you have any additional questions that came up that you'd like for me to respond to, I want to encourage you to go ahead and add those to the comments below. Be happy to respond to those. And in the future, I hope to talk more about how the notary bond works or doesn't work. Those of you who are in states where you're not bonded, is that an advantage or a disadvantage? And then, of course, the role of notary errors and omission insurance, also known as professional liability insurance. Again, appreciate you hanging in there with me for so long, much longer than I expected. But again, I hope you found it helpful. Have a great rest of your day and look forward to you coming back again to this channel. And if you haven't already done so, if you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up, like, and if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe today. Thank you.